Mr. Anderson, Tara's lawyer, finally spoke, his tone now gentler. Surely we can come to a mutual understanding here. Mrs. Anderson is open to renegotiating the prenup terms. Hello, I'm Ethan. Life has a funny way of surprising you, doesn't it? Like tonight, for example. There I was, sitting across from Tara in a high-end restaurant, the type where the menu doesn't even show prices. The quiet clinking of fine silverware and soft hum of conversation surrounded us as we celebrated our engagement. Tara looked breathtaking, as always. Her dark hair was elegantly swept up, and her eyes sparkled with joy. She'd just scored a big promotion at her corporate job, and she was over the moon. Me? I was just thrilled to be there, sipping my wine and basking in our love. Then, just as I was about to enjoy my pricey steak, Tara dropped a bombshell. Ethan, sweetheart, she began, her voice as smooth as her silk dress. I think we should get a prenup. I nearly choked on my wine. A prenup? I echoed, trying to keep it cool. I mean, I'm an artist. My income's about as steady as a tipsy tightrope walker. Tara, on the other hand, had the corporate executive gig. Steady climb up the ladder, big paycheck, the whole package. She reached over and took my hand. Don't worry, it'll be fair. Fast forward a few weeks, and there I was, sitting in a stiff lawyer's office. The guy looked like he'd been sucking on lemons his entire life. He went on about clauses and terms, and honestly, most of it flew over my head. Something about lifestyle maintenance and future income protection. It all sounded fair enough. Tara sat beside me, nodding along, occasionally adding a comment. She seemed to know what she was talking about, so I just went with it. I mean, this was Tara, the woman I loved, the one I was going to spend my life with. If she said it was fair, then it was fair. When it was time to sign, I'll admit I hesitated for a moment, but then I looked at Tara, saw the hopeful look in her eyes, and thought, why not? I scribbled my name on the line. As we were leaving, I couldn't resist a joke. Hey, maybe this prenup will bite us someday, huh? I nudged Tara playfully. She laughed, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of something. Triumph? Relief? I wasn't sure. But that's love, right? You take the ups with the downs, roll with the punches. Little did I know, those punches were just about to start rolling in. Hi there, I'm Tara. Let me tell you, life has a way of throwing curveballs. Take my husband Ethan, for example. When we first got married, he was this laid-back artist, sweet as could be, but not exactly bringing in big bucks. I was the one earning, climbing that corporate ladder like it was my own personal mountain. But things change, don't they? Faster than you can say prenup. It started small. Ethan's paintings started selling, not just to friends or at local cafes, but at major galleries. Suddenly, my artist husband was getting written up in art magazines and invited to exclusive events. At first, I was thrilled. I mean, who wouldn't be proud of their spouse's success? But then, one relaxed Sunday morning, as we were lying in our sunlit bedroom, Ethan dropped a surprise. Tara, love, he said casually while sipping his coffee. I've been thinking, maybe we should take another look at that prenup. I almost spit out my espresso. What? Why? I asked, keeping my tone steady. Ethan shrugged, his tousled hair catching the morning light. Well, things have changed, haven't they? My income isn't what it used to be. I felt my defenses rise. Balanced? The prenup is balanced. It's fair. It's necessary, I said, placing my cup down a little harder than intended. The prenup stays as it is. It's there to protect both of us, I stated firmly, turning to face him. Ethan watched me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he shrugged and stood up. All right, if that's how you want it, he said neutrally. He kissed my cheek and left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I watched him go, I couldn't shake the feeling that something between us had changed. The balance of power, maybe? Or the trust? I wasn't sure. But one thing I knew was that I wasn't ready to let go of the security that Prenup provided. Not now, not ever. Little did I realize that my grip on that security was already starting to slip. Hey, Ethan here again. Ever heard that success is the best revenge? Well, it's not just revenge. It's a full-blown revolution. My art, my writing, my poetry, my knowledge, and my experience. This kind of magic works. Solo shows in New York, London, Paris, paintings selling for 6, sometimes 7 figures. The art world elite couldn't get enough of Ethan's raw, intense vision. Their words, not mine. And Tara? Oh, you should have seen her face every time I closed a new deal. That tight smile, the one that barely reached her eyes. It was becoming her default expression. One evening, I was in my studio, finishing up a piece that was set to sell for a cool $1 million. Tara stormed in, all fire and fury. Ethan, she snapped, her tone sharp enough to cut steel, we need to talk about your finances. I didn't even turn around. What about them? You're making deals left and right, selling paintings all over. I feel like I'm being shut out. We're supposed to be partners, Ethan. I laughed. Partners? That's rich, coming from you, Tara. Wasn't it you who wanted separate finances? Something about safeguarding your hard-earned money? She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Good. That's different, and you know it, she said, stumbling over her words. I'm talking about being involved in your financial decisions. I have experience with this. Help, I interrupted, finally turning to face her, or control, because from where I stand, it seems like you're trying to keep a hold on the reins. Sorry, darling, but that ship has sailed. Tara's face turned crimson. That's not fair. I'm just looking out for our future. Our future. I scoffed. Or yours. That prenup you insisted on makes it clear that my earnings are mine to manage. Isn't that right, Tara? Her mouth opened, then closed, her argument failing her. Checkmate, I thought. Look, I continued, my tone separate now. Things are different now. You wanted separate finances. Well, here you go. You can have it both ways. I just, I don't know how to handle this, Ethan, she admitted, her voice small. Everything's changed. Yeah, it has, I agreed, turning back to my painting. Funny how that happens, isn't it? You push for control, and suddenly you're the one who's lost it. Karma's a real piece of work, Tara. I heard her take a sharp, shaky breath. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. What happened to us, Ethan? I dipped my brush in paint, not bothering to meet her gaze. You happened, Tara. You and your damn prenup. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have $1 million painting to finish. I didn't turn around as she left, the sound of her heels fading down the hallway. Let her stew in it. Let her feel the weight of her own choices press down on her. As for me, I was just getting started. That prenup she had demanded, it was about to become the trap she couldn't escape, and I was going to relish every moment of watching her squirm. Tara here. You know that sinking feeling when you realize you've messed up beyond repair? Yeah, that's me right now. I'd always prided myself on being in control, the boss, the one who called the shots. But lately, it feels like I'm in a warped version of Freaky Friday, where I'm stuck in the shoes of a completely different Ethan than the one I used to know. It all came to a head when I discovered Ethan's little secret. There I was, in our home office, hunting for some tax documents, when I found it. A statement from an offshore account I knew nothing about. The numbers made my head spin. 7 figures. At least. Rage filled me as I stormed into Ethan's studio, waving the paper like a red flag. What the hell is this? I demanded, my voice sharp enough to shatter glass. Ethan barely looked up from his canvas. Ah, he said, his tone dripping with mock surprise. I see you've been snooping. Snooping? I snapped. This is our house, Ethan. I shouldn't have to snoop to know what's going on here. He set his brush down, turning to face me with a smirk that made my blood boil. Our house, sure, but not our money. Isn't that what you wanted, Tara? Separate finances? I felt as though I'd been slapped, but this is different. This is deceit. Ethan's eyes hardened. Is it? Or am I just following the example you set? Protecting my assets. Keeping our monies separate. Ring any bells? My arguments fell apart like a sandcastle at high tide. He was right, damn him. The prenup I'd demanded, the one I thought would shield me, was now the very tool he was using against me. You're going to leave me, aren't you? The words slipped out before I could stop them, exposing the fear that had been gnawing at me for months. Ethan's laugh was cold. Leave you? Why would I do that when things are finally getting interesting? Ethan's voice dripped with sarcasm. I sank into a chair, feeling as though all the air had been sucked out of the room. I don't get it, I murmured. This isn't how it was supposed to turn out. I was just trying to protect myself, my career. Ethan's voice was cold, and now I'm doing the same. You can't fault me for learning from the best, can you? I looked up at him, really looked. When had he turned into this detached, calculating man? Where was the carefree artist I'd married? Then again, where was the woman he'd married? So what happens now? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Ethan shrugged and returned to his painting. Now? Now you get to live with the choices you made, Tara. How does it feel? I felt tears prickling at my eyes, but I refused to let him see me cry. And if I want to change things, if I want us to be real partners, he paused, his brush hovering above the canvas. For a brief moment, I saw a glimpse of the old Ethan, but it quickly vanished, replaced by this hardened version. Too little, too late, he replied flatly. You made the rules, Tara. Now you get to follow them. As I sat there, staring at the man I thought I knew, a sinking feeling settled in. I had built my own trap. The prenup I'd crafted so carefully had now become a cage, and I was the one locked inside. What on earth had I done? And, more importantly, was there any way out of this mess? Or had I finally truly trapped myself? Gather around, everyone. Ethan here. And wow, do I have a story for you. Remember how I said things were getting interesting? Well, they just went from interesting to explosive. There I was, sitting in this high-end lawyer's office, where the chairs probably cost more than my first car. Tara was there too, perched on the edge of her seat, looking ready to bolt. Couldn't blame her. The tension in that room was thick enough to slice with a knife. Our lawyers were there as well. Mine was a sharp woman named Miranda. Tara's attorney, a slick corporate type, looked like he'd eaten a few startups for breakfast. They eyed each other like fighters in a ring. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, Tara's lawyer began, his voice as smooth as oil. We're here to discuss the terms of your divorce. Mrs. Anderson believes she deserves a fair settlement, given her contributions to the marriage. I couldn't help but snort. Contributions? That's rich. Miranda, bless her, jumped right in. Fair is a subjective term, counselor. The prenuptial agreement clearly outlines the terms for any separation, and my client has adhered to those terms strictly. Tara's lawyer smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. Ah, yes, the prenup. The very document Mrs. Anderson now contests as being, let's say, inequitable. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. Funny how it's suddenly inequitable now that the tables have turned, isn't it? The lawyers exchanged uneasy glances. This clearly wasn't going as planned. Mr. Anderson, Tara's lawyer interjected. My client simply wishes for both parties to leave this marriage on equal footing. Surely you can understand that. I laughed out loud. The audacity was almost too much to handle. Equal footing? Where was that concern for equality when Tara was the one earning big? When she insisted on separate finances and made damn sure her wealth was protected from little old artist me? Miranda placed a calming hand on my arm, but I was on a roll. Well, I was on a roll. You want to talk about contributions to the marriage? Fine. Let's discuss how Tara's obsession with control poisoned everything. How her insistence on that prenup created a rift that only widened. How her constant dismissal of my career almost drove me to give up on my dreams. Tara's face crumpled. That's not true. I supported you. I shook my head, my voice cold. You tolerated me. Um, as long as I was the struggling artist, someone you could show off as your little project. Um, but the moment I began succeeding on my own terms, that's when the real issues began. The room fell silent, and even the lawyers looked uncomfortable. Mr. Anderson, Tara's lawyer finally said, his voice gentler now. Surely we can reach some kind of understanding here. Mrs. Anderson is open to renegotiating the terms of the prenup. I scoffed. Oh, now she wants to renegotiate. Isn't that convenient? But here's the thing. I don't want to renegotiate. I want to enforce the prenup exactly as it stands. Tara gasped audibly, "Ethan, please." I held up a hand, cutting her off. "No, Tara, you don't get to beg now. You made this bed, and now you have to lie in it, just like you told me all those years ago when you insisted on this prenup." I turned to Miranda. What exactly does the prenup specify in the event of a divorce? Miranda's smile held a gleam of satisfaction. Well, Mr. Anderson, according to the terms Mrs. Anderson herself established in the case of a divorce, each party retains their own personal assets and income. Okay, I promise. But you can report to me. There's no allowance for spousal support, Tara's lawyer said, clearing his throat. Mrs. Anderson's contributions to the household were, well, minimal, I finished for him. I've been covering everything for the past 2 years. The house, the cars, the vacations, everything. Tara's face had turned pale. But my career, she stammered. I gave up opportunities for you. I leaned in, meeting her gaze. Did you, Tara? Or did you just assume I'd stay the struggling artist, never challenging your superiority? Well, surprise! People evolve, dreams come true, and sometimes karma bites back. The rest of the meeting blurred with legal talk and simmering tension. By the end, one thing was certain. Tara would walk away from this marriage with much less than she had hoped for. As we stood to leave, Tara grabbed my arm, her voice trembling. "Ethan, please," she whispered. "This isn't you. You're not this heartless." For a fleeting second, I felt a hint of the affection I once had, but then I recalled all the nights I doubted myself, the subtle dismissals and her lack of belief in me. Gently, I removed her hand. "You're right, Tara. This isn't me. This is the person you taught me to be. I hope you're proud of what you created." Walking out of that office, leaving Tara staring after me, I felt a strange blend of triumph and sadness. This wasn't how I'd pictured our story ending. But then again, nothing about our relationship had gone as expected. Life's strange like that, isn't it? You think you've got everything mapped out, and then bam, the script flips. As for me, I was ready to start a new chapter, one where I called the shots, set the boundaries, and never let anyone make me feel small again. Sorry, Tara. Looks like this struggling artist just finished his masterpiece, and you're not in it. Well, here we are at the bitter end, Tara speaking, though I barely recognize myself anymore. The divorce is finalized, the dust has settled, and me? I'm left standing in the ruins of the life I thought I had so carefully built. Want to know the kicker? That prenup, that damn piece of paper I thought would protect me, ended up being my downfall. Ethan walked away with it all. His thriving art career, our house, even the dog. And me? I got a heavy dose of karma and a one-way ticket to Redsville. I keep replaying it in my mind. The day I suggested the prenup, feeling so clever. The look in Ethan's eyes when he signed it, a look I mistook for surrender, but now realize was the beginning of a plan. The gradual, relentless shift in our relationship as he found success, and I grew more afraid. Afraid of losing control, afraid of being overshadowed, afraid of the very success I claimed to want for him. It's funny how fear can warp you, twist you into someone you never thought you'd become. Now I sit alone in my small rented apartment, watching Ethan's achievements play out on my TV screen. Another gallery opening, another record-breaking sale, another interview where he dazzles the world with his talent and charm. And every time, it feels like a knife twisting in my stomach. I remember when his talent was my secret, when I believed I was the only one who saw his potential, when I thought I could keep it contained, labeled simply as Ethan, Tara's husband. God, how foolish I was. The worst part, the absolute worst part, is that I did this to myself. Every clause in that prenup, every safeguard I thought I was putting in place, turned into a weapon in Ethan's hands. A weapon he wielded with the kind of precision any corporate shark would admire. I taught him well, too well. So here I am, starting from scratch at an age when I thought I'd be settled, watching the man I loved, the man I underestimated, soar to heights I can only dream of now. All because I was too afraid to be a real partner, too obsessed with keeping the upper hand. If there's a lesson in all this, and believe me, I've had plenty of time to reflect, it's this. Be careful what you protect yourself against. Sometimes the very walls you build to keep yourself safe turn into the prison that holds you captive. Ethan's free now, free from me, free from the doubts I planted, free from the restrictions I tried to impose on him. And me? I'm left with nothing but regrets and the bitter taste of irony. I made my bed, and now I have no choice but to lie in it, alone.